Don't say anything, especially not Stephen Pepper.
Well,
I
speaking
believe
of
we are
Pepper,
live. So Tim, you're in Tokyo?
I am.
How
That's
are
why
things
it's significantly more light here than it is where all of you are.
really? So
Um,
Tokyo has more light than the United States does.
Huh.
well, barely. I mean, it's been it's actually been terrible weather in Tokyo. It's just starting to clear up.
Aw.
It was unseasonably cold and rainy, which if anybody's ever been to Tokyo and it's unseasonably cold and rainy, it's not a pleasant place to be. But yeah, no, it's been marvelous. We've been going and seeing team labs, which all of us I don't even know what do you guys describe? Aaron and I were talking about this yesterday. What do you describe team labs as? Because digital art museum
an
doesn't cut it.
immersive art
Interactive, yeah,
experience.
Yes, like
immersive.
immersive, experiential,
Yes.
or trippy kind of art experience.
Yeah, all
Okay,
that.
so team
Yeah.
labs, it was Stephen, what was that? An immersive, trippy, experiential art experience?
Something like that.
Uh,
I think that's accurate.
So, so we all went to they have one installation called Planets that we all went to during Party of Five a couple of years ago. And their main installation in Tokyo, Borderless, was closed at that time. Since then, they've moved that Borderless installation to a different location and it's now reopened. And so my wife and I are going to, and it's also peak cherry blossom season in Tokyo right now. So we're alternating between team labs, cherry trees, food, team labs, cherry trees, food,
Mm.
and it's been a marvelous experience so far.
Yeah, that sounds.
Anybody who's
Which is the best? Like, if you had to just do one of those things, would it be food?
Mm.
Would it be team labs? Just give
So
Or
up
cherry
eating?
trees.
I would say if I only had to do one of those things, I would be very angry at whoever's making me only do one of those things. So right now, that's you, Greg, the frequent miler. No, honestly, I think uh, to me, it's hard to oversell uh, cherry blossom or sakura season in peak time in Japan.
Really?
There are always, and last night we had an example. There are always times during so where I'm just you just encounter this milieu, this landscape, this thing that you're in that is completely transcendental. I mean, it's crazy to me. Like it's we were just, I mean, chills, everybody giggling. I mean, it's there's
Wow.
just there's beauty here that I haven't during cherry blossom season that I just haven't encountered elsewhere. So I would say I'm a firm proponent that everybody needs to add to their bucket list to experience at least once in their life um, cherry blossom season in Japan, and not just season, but like a place where it's at peak bloom, and it's just magical.
That's
So
awesome.
if I had to do one, the food would be tough. It would be tough to get like say, okay, I'm going to go to Japan and not eat because that's like one of the great joys of Japan. But I would probably say that if I had to do one, and I could only do one, it would be cherry blossom.
Yeah,
Nice.
that's awesome. Good to know.
Question.
So yeah, if you're ever in
maybe
that situation, Greg, remember that.
We have
Just
to choose
one.
one of the three.
Hopefully, I won't be there like not in blossom season, because then it would be a disappointing pick.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
um
Imagine if you did that in like the fall. It'd be
so
lovely.
in the spirit of if you could only choose one, we're going to start with an if you could only choose one type question. Oops, sorry. And this is going to be for everyone, but we're going to start with Greg. If you could only have cards from one issuer, which would you choose?
Oh wow. That is tough.
This is only choose one day. Where anything that exists ever, you
Only
can only
choose
choose
one
one
day.
of. Yeah.
Would it be
Wow.
cardless?
It's not that tough, is it?
It's not your turn yet.
I
Just trying to apply a little
think it would
pressure.
have to be. I think it would have to be Hyatt. I mean Chase, because of
Freudian slip.
because Chase gives me access to Hyatt, and plus most other like airline programs that I care about. Not all of them, but a lot of them. And so yeah, so I guess if I had to do just one, it would be that. And I know Bilt also has Hyatt, but since they only have the one card, I wouldn't want to limit to just one card.
Okay, we're gonna have to find out what Nick was thinking. So Nick, you're next.
Oh, I mean, it's clearly Amex. I don't know what Greg is on over there. It's clearly Amex because there's so many cards that you can earn welcome bonuses from. So you could stack up tons of points from welcome bonuses. You could stack up points from referral bonuses from referring somebody else in your life. You could stack up points from category bonuses, spending bonuses. They have authorized user bonuses a bunch of the time. There's just so many more opportunities to stack up huge amounts of points. Now, I would miss Hyatt if I didn't have Chase, but I could afford to book a hotel wherever it is I go. I can probably find a hotel I can pay for that I'll be happy enough with. I probably am not going to pay for business class flights with cash, but with Amex, I could easily earn enough points each year to take a trip where I could fly there comfortably, and then I could transfer my points to Hilton when there's a good transfer bonus and stay in SLH properties. So to me, it's hands down Amex. It's not even close. If I had to pick one, that'd be my one.
All right. Hot takes. Steven.
I was initially thinking about Amex just because it's so much easier to rack up points with them, but I think I am going to have to go with Chase just because I think I'd miss Hyatt stays too much. And I think of the like five of us, well, I guess out of the four of us guys, I'd probably be the one who'd be like more content with flying economy. So I'd much rather like stay in Hyatt and things like that and be able to take advantage of globalist benefits and if necessary fly economy. But even then, like I'd still have access to Aeroplan and United and things like that. So it's not like I'd be completely closed off from being able to take premium flights. So that's my choice.
You could
All right,
still
so we-
stay at a Hyatt and get your globalist benefits. You don't need
Yeah,
Chase
but
cards for
then,
that part.
then you've got to like pay for all of those.
Whoa.
But you can cash out the multitude of Amex points so you could pay for your Hyatt stays.
All right. Well, maybe
Okay.
Tim will be on your side. Let's find out. Tim, Amex, Chase, or something else?
So I think there's let me hedge this. I'm gonna do a triple hedge. And my triple hedge is gonna be that I agree with both Steven and Nick or Greg that
It's
and
close.
actually well,
We almost agreed with me.
yeah, I agree with Nick, Carrie, Steven, and Greg that
That the cherry
so-
blossoms are so great.
I know. Whew, drunk on cherry blossom. The what I find myself most in need of right now is lodging points. Points to give me some sort of lodging. And I find that I have a multitude of ways to get airline points, but I use those in less situations and less frequently than I do lodging points. And so so that's why to me, Amex would be really tough. I agree with Nick. If it was just about earning, like if we're not changing anything else and it's just about earning, it would be Amex hands down. Amex is by far the easiest way to earn a ton of points. And
For your
the
family of
problem is
four.
their lodging options are not great. They do have Hilton, but the lodging options aren't great. And honestly, like, okay, you maybe you use 60,000 Aeroplan points to get to Europe 4 times a year. Well, then in Europe, you have 14 nights of hotels that you need to book. And if
And there
I'm
aren't
using-
Hyatts in most of those places
and I'm
anyway.
using, well, I know. So here, but so if I'm using 60,000, if I'm using 50,000 Hilton point or Amex points to transfer to Hilton to redeem them to Hilton for 14 nights, I'm going to be burning through a ton of Amex points. So I agree with Nick on the earning side. It would be Amex in terms of partners, assuming the earning was all equal, it would probably have to be Bilt. Just simply because if I were earning Bilt points at the same clip as I was
Twist.
earning anything else,
Sure.
it would be
Well,
Bilt.
right,
And keep
right.
in mind, I don't have the
Agreed.
Bilt credit card. I don't engage with Bilt at all as a program because it's almost useless to me. However,
I'm
if
confused.
if the earning was all equal, it would
Because there
be
aren't
Bilt.
good ways to earn, he's saying,
Okay.
for him.
So all that to
Yeah.
say, but in terms of what I would pick between those two, I don't know. I mean, it's like Sakura versus Japanese food. Like, how do you how do you? But I would say that that would be my limitation with Amex. Like, yeah, I'd be earning a bunch of points, but gosh, it's just tough to. Outside of Hilton, there's no good lodging options, and Hilton
I
is,
find it interesting that you say that
hard to
because
access.
outside of Hyatt, there's no good lodging options with your Chase points, right? It's like you say
Well, I'm
the
not saying
same thing
necessarily Chase,
about
like,
Chase, right?
Kind of a good
yeah,
point.
and well, but I think the Chase it's easier to me. The Chase Hyatt combo is that it's easier. It's the easiest combination of earning good value points lodging because you're earning
Okay.
points in a reasonable clip, and those points are actually worth something. Whereas Amex, you're earning points at a reasonable clip. And when you were, and you know, your best shot is maybe they're worth 1.3 cents each if you get it on a 30% transfer bonus. And, you know, compared to buying those points to use for lodging. So it's just such a low ceiling to use them for lodging. However,
Fair
I
enough.
do hear your point that it's way easier to earn them than any other thing. So
Of
that would
course.
probably carry me in the end if I had to pick one.
I
Gosh,
agree
that
with you. If I could earn Bilt points as quickly as I earn Amex points, then hands down it would be Bilt.
yeah.
Wow. Greg and Steven, you feel the same way?
Um, I- yeah, probably. Although I'm hesitating a little bit because there's some things that you can do with different cards, like spend your way to elite status that you could do like with a Chase Hyatt card that you can't do with the Bilt card, for example.
Good point. Yeah.
And so Bilt, you know, I think the only reason I would say Bilt is because of the transfers to Alaska.
Mhm.
You know, as far as over the others. And I don't know. Is that enough reason to pick that?
Yeah. Good point. Good point
Maybe.
with the ancillary cards. I was really only thinking
Yeah.
membership rewards points with Amex too, but you know, of course, when you got the Hilton Aspire and the Hilton Surpass,
Yeah.
I'm going to
Yeah.
argue that that's potentially a pretty good
It is.
combo too. But
And
No,
the
for
upgrade
sure.
but anyway,
downgrade
tough.
options and yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Great
and
question.
I'm teasing a little bit because it's a good question, and I knew that.
Yeah.
lot of people
And
would say
there's no
Chase.
right answer here. We just know that
Right.
whatever Nick says is wrong.
Right.
Generally, yeah.
Right. Yeah.
All right.
There's an answer key for the test that is that.
Don't worry, I'll save you from this side of banter, Nick, and we'll move along
Okay.
to the next question.
Very good.
Although this one is assigned to you. What's your thought on how long the U.S. Bank 4% card could stay alive?
Not long. Is it still alive? I mean, I don't even know. Can you still apply for it right now? It sounds like I saw Dr. Credit posted, I think yesterday and then again today, that there's a bunch of rumored changes coming like soon in a couple of weeks where you're going to be limited. You're not going to be able to earn the bonus now on taxes, I think, and educational stuff, and of course, gift cards is going to be potentially excluded, and I think there's actually a limit as to how much you can earn per statement cycle. I think in a couple of weeks here, it sounds like it's going to be more or less completely nerfed. So if you've got it and you're still earning 4% with it, enjoy the next 10 minutes because it's ending soon.
All right.
I think it's probably true. It seems all signs point to that being the case.
Sad. All right. This next question I'm gonna answer because somebody already answered it in our little internal chat. Do you guys have a comprehensive list of when each type of points expire? For example, United Travel Bank expires 5 years after purchasing. Hyatt points, I think, expire 2 years if no activity, etc. So I will paste this post in that chat. There's a post called "How to Keep Points and Miles Alive." And while I do that, then Stephen, I'm going to give you this next question. Do you think Aeroplan is going to lose value because of too many tiers of pricing for different partners? A big chunk of the value is mixing partners. That's hard if there's so much variance. What are your thoughts on that?
It's tricky just because I think we're gonna kind of have to wait to see how everything shakes out. Like Nick did some investigation the other day into like the award pricing and things, and so he can probably speak on this topic like a little bit more knowledgeably. But it could certainly have an impact, but because it's such early days, and who knows if they're going to make further changes, and some of this is going to be priced dynamically, and so at that point, how much of it's like quite how dynamic is it going to be? Is it going to be extortionate amounts, or is it going to be somewhat reasonable, but where you can like get much more award availability. So yeah, there's like too many factors at the moment to kind of really know, given that these changes have only just kind of come into play. I haven't actually had a chance to do any Aeroplan searches yet since that happened. So how about you, Nick? What are your thoughts?
It's hard to say, like you said, because so far, the post, if you read the post I published today or last night or whatever a day ago, I found that mixing two partners on an award dropped the dynamic pricing from United to regular award chart pricing in all the instances I found. But the new award chart for United and the other select partners has no cap. So there's no guarantee that it's going to stay that way, that it'll be that way tomorrow. I mean, who knows when it might change. And my fear with this from the beginning was how long before another partner says, oh, well, we want you to pay us more for our awards too. You know, like if Lufthansa Group moves all of their airlines to the select partners chart that's dynamically priced, then you're going to lose like four more airlines or whatever it is. And so I don't like the precedent that sets at all in terms of telling all of the rest of their 41 or 42 or however many airline partners that we're willing to negotiate and charge more for your awards. I don't like that for Aeroplan at all. So, I mean, I think that it's likely that they'll lose value over time. So far, we're not seeing that from the United Awards, at least when you're mixing partners. The nonstop awards are more expensive, but if you're mixing United with another partner, so far it hasn't hurt the value. But I always say, got to take advantage while you can't strike while the iron is hot. I would be looking to redeem sooner rather than later, probably. Although, at this point, I don't think we'll see a change soon. I can't imagine we'll see another change in the next couple of months. So you probably got a while before anything becomes really bad.
All right.
I didn't see
So
your I just saw the headline. I haven't had a chance to read your whole post yet. When you were looking at mixed partner awards involving United, was that across all mixed partner awards or just
Yeah. So,
those
or just those, go ahead.
that involved Air Canada?
No. So, so to Europe, for instance, a nonstop from Newark to Frankfurt was pricing at 80,000 on United, or a nonstop from Newark to London was 80,000 on United. But if you flew United from Newark to London and then Lufthansa from London to Frankfurt, then it was 60,000.
Oh,
And
wow.
you could do a stopover in London. And I found the same exact thing going from Houston to Sao Paulo in South America and then continuing on. You got a whole bunch of options there because they partner with Avianca, they partner with Azul. Turkish
Right.
runs a couple of routes from there. So does, I think, Ethiopian. Maybe there's quite a few different options from Sao Paulo. And it went from 100,000 for the nonstop Houston to Sao Paulo to 60,000 if you add another leg on another
Wow.
partner. And then Asia was a similar story. And again, you could book it with a stopover. And, who knows? If you miss your second part of that, one time, probably nobody's ever going to notice and you're just going to save yourself some miles. So anyway, or you just see two places for less than what they're going to charge on the nonstops. Now, again, that could change like while we're recording this, for all I know. That's the problem with a dynamically priced chart that has no cap. It just has a starting here, and this is what the median price is, and that's all true right now. But in a few months, that could be very different. But at least for now, if you're mixing United with at least one other partner, it seems that all of the awards I found that mixed United with at least one other partner were pricing according to the old chart. But maybe you'll find something different. So it's worth doing some investigation, though.
yeah. All right. Tim, this question's for you. This person is going to Europe for the first time from LAX in 1 year. How do I get started figuring out how to use my many Amex miles?
That's a good question. First, I would move from LAX. Move somewhere else first, then get started. No, and we're just joking because we all had to last year as part of the flying by the seat of our points challenge. We had to book. We were all in LA, and Stephen and Carrie made us book close in travel or business class travel to Europe. And Nick still hasn't actually gotten to Europe. He's
We did
actually in a
not
lounge.
require it to be business class. That was your
He's still in a
choices.
lounge somewhere trying to
Right.
find availability. So there's three ways to go about it, and I'm going to defer one part to Greg, to ask Greg, because Greg's been doing a ton of work on seat or on different award tools that would be very helpful in your quest. And part of it is saying you're going to Europe. I'm not exactly sure where, but a good place to start we have a post called, I don't remember the exact name of it, but if you just look Google frequent miler best ways to get to Europe with points and miles, um, that will have a very comprehensive list of some of the best ways to fly there. And then each one of those options will show transfer partners. And in this case, you could just go and look at where your transfer, which of those programs or which of those awards are bookable via transfer with membership rewards points, because most likely you're going to be transferring in order for your flights, you're going to be transferring to one of Amex's flight transfer partners and then using those points in that partner's reward program to book your award travel. So that'll give you an idea of some of the kind of sweet spots that you can use with American Express. And we also have a best uses of membership rewards points, but that's a little less direct in terms of talking about your actual trip to Europe. But then I would say, Greg, what would you, and let's say free tool, let's say without having to pay money,
Mhm.
just as a, and there's pro tools you can get. What would you say at a year out would be the best way to start looking for availability, given that you have Amex points?
Yeah. So there's a free tool called Points, yeah, that is pretty darn capable, even in the free version. And it has capability of, if you knew exactly where you wanted to go, you could put, say, I want to go from this airport to that airport during this time frame. But it also lets you just explore available flights with much broader searches. So you could say, from my home airport, show me, all the flights to Europe during this broad time window. And it no tool could possibly have every possible flight in there, but it has a lot of them, and it'll show you like how many miles it would take to book different ones, and that could give you some idea of where to start. Um, and but you know what? Take a look at our post on which award search tool is best to look at the different options in there, because there's different ones that might be better suited for different things. For example, if you're brand new to transferring points to a foreign airline, and if that worries you at all, you might actually prefer to use a tool like Point Me, because that gives step-by-step instructions how to do that.
Yeah. So that post again is which award search tools are best, I think is what it's called. I'll see if I can find it and put it in the chat. Greg, this question is for you. Will Hyatt ever revamp their personal credit card?
Yes.
You know that
Didn't
for
ask
sure.
when.
Is this a guarantee?
I'm just giving an answer. Yeah, I mean, I think they will. It's been pretty set for a while now, and unfortunately, I think that Chase has discovered the joys of couponizing cards through their United co-brand, and it wouldn't surprise me at all if Hyatt isn't gonna soon come nipping on their heels and say, "Hey, we want to couponize too. We want to get in on some of that higher annual fee action in exchange for hard to use coupons." But hopefully,
Yeah.
some good stuff will come with that too. We'll see.
Yeah. All right. Nick. In the US, you can have multiple people in a hotel room, yet in Europe, it seems impossible to put 4 people in a hotel room. Is there a way to do that in Scotland? And then I'm going to say in general, also, I'm going to add.
Sure. So a couple of different thoughts here. First of all, in Scotland, very specifically, we stayed at the W Edinburgh last year, and one of their standard room types was I can't remember exactly what they call it, but it was basically 2 double beds. And some nights it would allow you to put 2 adults and 2 kids in that room, and it would price as a standard award. And other nights, if you put in 2 adults and 2 kids, it wouldn't price as a standard award. And I don't know why, but we were able to book it for the nights that we needed anyway, with 2 adults and 2 kids. So, and the same room was available another night and we couldn't. I don't know why, but at any rate, so there are some hotels, my point is, that will allow two adults and two kids. It's not common though. You're right. For the most part, when we're traveling to Europe now I'm looking at just having to get two rooms and or to compare that against the cost of like an Airbnb vacation rental type place. Sometimes suites will accommodate more people, but that does vary because sometimes suites will only accommodate three. You have to kind of look and see. If the suite will accommodate four people and the standard room does not, I have not yet run into a problem with booking a standard room for two people or three people using an upgrade award to upgrade to the suite and then contacting the hotel or my concierge to add an extra person to the reservation. So that's another strategy to use there. Sometimes the extended stay type brands, if you can find them in Europe, will offer the chance for to put four people in a room. I know there's like a couple of residence inns, I think in France that I've seen that do allow four people in a room. I mean, we found it in places, but really it's more of a luck of the draw kind of thing. So more often than not, we're just having to budget for two rooms now, which stinks, but that's just the way that it has been for me so far. Does anybody else have a better suggestion for four
But
people in a room?
I've got a few things. So one of the reasons why it's so hard to do that is that property in Europe is generally a lot smaller, just because a lot of it's kind of more historic properties that were built 100, 200 years ago, where they didn't need as much space. And so the rooms are smaller. And so you just physically can't fit enough beds in there safely. And so that's why you'll often find that in properties, certainly in the UK and like elsewhere in Europe. In terms of solutions, one option is, if you have Wyndham points, is to book through cottages.com. Because you can use your points for that. And we've actually booked a really amazing looking three-bedroom cottage on the Isle of Skye for later this month for us and a couple of our friends. And so that's a three-bedroom one. And so unfortunately, it means it's 15,000 points a night. Or per 15,000 points per night per room. And so we're having to redeem 45,000 points, but we get a 10% discount with a Wyndham card. And so that's one option, is that depending on the setup of the house, you might just be able to book a one-bedroom house. If they've got like a sofa bed or something like that, you'd be able to fit four people in there. So that's one good option. Another option is Premier Inn. That's a UK-based hotel chain. They do have a few properties elsewhere in the world, but they're mostly in the UK. And they do have quite a lot of properties around Scotland. And so we're going to be staying at one up in Scotland in Falkirk. Not all of them take four people, but I know that there certainly are some, like the Premier in London County Hall definitely has rooms for four people, because our friends booked a room for them and their kids when we stayed there a couple of years ago. And I imagine that there's some in Scotland where you could do that. Worst comes to the worst, you just book two rooms. The rooms are normally very reasonably priced. Like the hotel that we booked was something like $60 for the night or something like that. So even if you're booking two rooms, that's $120 for the night, still probably much cheaper than you're going to get for a hotel with space for four people just in one room. So that's another good option as well. And discovered recently that you can actually book Premier Inn properties through the Chase, Capital One and City travel portals. And so that's another way that you can actually use points on those stays. And so you can't book it through the Amex travel portal. For some reason, it doesn't show up there. But yeah, that's another option. They don't appear on any other online travel agencies like hotels.com, but the like credit card, like bank issued travel portals, then you can book through there. So cottages.com and Premier Inn, I think, will be some of your better chances of finding properties that take four people.
That was really, I'm glad you said cottages.com, because that was in my mind when I first started talking. I forgot by the time I got to where I should have put that in. One other thing, if elsewhere in Europe, not just this won't probably help you in Scotland, but Hyatt in some places offers what they call the family rate, and the property has to be participating in it. So you're gonna have to call Hyatt and find out whether or not the property participates in the family rate. If they do, you can get a second room for 50% off the cash rate. And when I wrote about this years ago, if memory serves correct, that was true even if you used points for the first room. You could still get half off of the cash rate for the second room at properties that participate in that. I don't know how many in Europe do, but that's another thing to keep in mind, the Hyatt family rate.
The other thing you could do, if the problem is that the hotel you want to stay at like has rooms that are big enough for four, but they're not available to book with points, one thing that you can do is
Oh.
book a cancelable room with points, and then contact the hotel and say, hey, I made this booking, but we really want to have 4 people in it. Can I pay extra to be bumped up to a family room? And a lot of places will do that for you at a rate that's much cheaper than, paying for 2 rooms.
And so
Wow.
Another great point.
one other final quick thought as well is I don't know if you're checking the direct website. So I don't know if you're going on like Hyatt.com and ihg.com. Check out the various different online travel agencies like hotels.com as well, just because there's other like European based and UK based hotel chains like Millennium, like Accor, even though they're all around the world, they do have a much better presence in Europe than they do in the US. And so you might be able to find all kinds of other options for 4 people that you wouldn't necessarily find if you're just kind of sticking with your more commonly like stayed at in the US brands.
Wow. I had no idea we would have so many tips for that.
I know.
All right.
Who knew?
Awesome.
Oh, really quickly, I'm just going to put on an asterisk that Nick wrote a terrific post about booking cottages.com reward properties using Wyndham rewards. I know that it's up to date because I just used that to book one about a month ago. So we'll put that in the
Nice.
show notes, and it's a great program, and it's worth checking out if you want to do travel primarily in the British Isles, but Europe as well, but primarily in the British Isles.
Nice. All right, Stephen, your turn. Despite the fact that you did answer a lot of that for Nick.
Thank you. Appreciate the save.
Yes. When looking for points and miles redemptions, at what point in time before the flight do you consider just paying with cash?
I don't know if I do. Like usually I would often go into something either assuming that I'd be using miles or that I'd be using cash. Like if I was planning a round trip to like between the US and Europe in economy or something like that, I'd probably be more likely just to be looking at cash ones from the outset, just because it's probably not going to be worth redeeming miles on top of whatever associated taxes and fees there are going to be for that. If I was looking at booking a business class flight, I'm not going to be looking at cash, and so I'm just going to be assuming that I'm going to find some kind of points or miles option. For the most part, like my wife and I have a fair good amount of flexibility, and so I've never kind of encountered a situation where things are cutting so fine that it's like, oh, okay, maybe I'm going to have to pay cash for this flight. I don't know about the other guys, but yeah, that's just not something that I've personally encountered. Plus, you'll often, I mean, depending on how much you really want to risk it and how essential this travel is, you'll often find certain programs opening up award availability in the last week or the last few days before your travel dates. And so even if you've spent the last like 9 months or something like that searching for award availability and you've been striking out, you might suddenly find, oh, wow, like there's all these kind of other options right at the last minute, whether or not that's in your risk tolerance to do that kind of thing. And if you have a partner or a family or something like that, whether or not they'd be happy enough to go along with that kind of uncertainty too. But yeah, usually it's a like or kind of situation rather than either or between like miles or cash.
Yeah. All right. Tim. This is an everyone question, but we're going to start with you. Two-parter. You guys stress opening up new cards for sign-up bonuses and using category multipliers. How many new cards do you open up for sign-up bonus each year, and how often apart do you open them? How far apart do you open them?
So that's a two-part. Well, actually, it is a two-part question, I see. So there's a couple ways to look at it. First of all, in terms of how far apart they are, each bank has slightly different what we would refer to as velocity rules, meaning how quickly you can apply for new cards through them after you've either applied for the same card or other cards in the sphere of the credit card universe. So Chase, for instance, has probably the most famous velocity limit called the 524 rule, where if you've applied for 5 or more personal cards from any bank within the last rolling 24 months, there's a lot of cards that they're likely to not approve you for. We have a post called The Complete Guide to Credit Card Application Rules by Bank that we'll throw in the show notes. And that goes through all of those different velocity rules for banks. And it's a lot of them. And unfortunately, there's no way to just succinctly say this 3 months, because some of them are just fine with some you can do multiple in a day, some you can only do once every 90 days. So it really does depend by card. But in terms of two things that I would say, I'm always working on a welcome offer for a card. You oftentimes two. I don't ever not have a new card. So what I would say limits my overall velocity is less a given time period, but more the amount of spend. What's my spend capacity? So if I can only spend $5,000 a month, I don't want to put myself in a situation where I need to spend $30,000 in 3 months in order to get two welcome offers. So I want the pace of my welcome offers to match the spend that I'm doing on those welcome offers. Also, my probably about 80 to 90% of the cards that I sign up for now are business cards. Part of the reason why I do that is because business cards generally are easier to get. They're easier to get welcome bonuses on multiple times. They're easier to get approved for, and they don't affect your Chase standing, your 524 standing, because most business cards, Chase doesn't consider part of that 524 rule. So when there is a new personal card that comes up that I might want to get from Chase, even though I've been getting business cards nonstop, it still looks like to Chase that, oh, you've only gotten 3 new cards in the last 24 months. And the other thing that's nice for me is that Chase or business cards don't report their credit utilization to your personal credit card, most of them, your credit utilization. So like if I have a, say, $15,000 limit on a credit card and I put $12,000 on it to do a welcome offer, that doesn't get reported as though I'm using $12,000 of my $15,000 credit utilization on there. So it allows me to be able to get to do higher spend on those cards without having a yo-yo in my credit rating because of credit utilization. That's a little more complex, but it's something to think about as you get further on into kind of the game. But I would say that in summation, what governs my velocity is the amount of spend that I'm willing to do, and as well as welcome offers on business cards that are good, because I'm much more likely to go for a business card welcome offer that's good than a personal card in general.
All right, we're gonna make this question more. Actually, somebody already made the question more specific for us, so I'm gonna go to that version of the question, and then we're gonna all answer it. How many credit cards do you open in a calendar year? And what's the split with the amount of business versus personal cards? So Tim, in your best estimate, how many cards did you sign up for last year and how many of them were business cards?
I'm just gonna ballpark it and say,
Right. Who could possibly know such things specifically?
honestly, it's tricky. Well, and last year was tricky too because there was a bunch of good opportunities for Amex cards. So I went hard on new Amex business cards last year.
Greg's pulling up his spreadsheet now.
So probably without looking at Greg's spreadsheet to try to one up him, I'm gonna guess somewhere between 15 and 20. So I'll say 15 just to make it sound not quite as bad. But probably around 15. And in general, probably around at least one a month-ish. But I would say 15.
All of those were business or no?
Last year I signed up for one personal card.
Okay. All right. Greg, is your spreadsheet open?
Greg, you're on mute.
He's examining, or he's on mute. Not sure which. Greg is on mute.
Greg. Apparently his speakers are on mute also.
Greg is on mute. Uh-oh. Yeah.
I saw an oops.
Right.
So maybe oh, there we go. There it is.
I wasn't listening to you guys.
Top secret information.
I was just talking away. So there you go. That's
that's it. As far as to it, really. Yeah. Thank you
I'm
for
Oh,
sharing.
God.
glad you shared your secrets.
I
Yeah.
was opening my spreadsheet just as Carrie predicted, and I it 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 doesn't tell me at a glance because the spreadsheet has both ones that were not approved as well as ones that were.
Oh.
So
Mhm.
I'm guessing of the cards listed there, I probably did 18 last year.
And how many of them were business? Do you know?
Um,
You don't have a column for that.
I
My gosh.
do, but then I
What
have
kind of
to.
spreadsheet is this?
You have to unfilter. You have to.
It
The
looks like
spreadsheet
about
wizard.
12 maybe. So majority
Okay.
were business, I think.
So similar to Tim's rate. Okay. Nick,
I would be guessing because I don't have the spreadsheet here.
you just
I,
have
I
all
was
the
using
tabs still open from the
mentals. Yeah,
application.
exactly. Probably. Gary jokes because she knows it's true. Yeah, I would guess at least 10, maybe a dozen, probably not 20, probably fewer than Tim and Greg, but at least 10 between my wife and I anyway. And the split on business and personal was probably, I'd say 75% business, 25% consumer cards. And I'm guesstimating. That's kind of I would think that's a ballpark year for us in general. Like Tim said, I totally agree that the spend that I'm like my capacity for spend is what determines my velocity for opening new cards. Apart from the bank specific rules that he mentioned, I don't really think about how long in between applications. Like if I'm talking about two different banks and I'm setting aside the 524 rule, I don't think about like, did I
Okay.
open one last week or yesterday or 5 minutes ago? Like, if I have the capacity for the spend, I don't worry about that. Like that doesn't come into play.
All right. Steven, I'm betting you have a spreadsheet as well.
I do have a spreadsheet, and it's actually far fewer cards than I was anticipating. So between my wife and I last year, it looks like we only got about 9 or 10 different cards between us, which I would have thought like it was more. But part of that is that we've had a hard time at times getting approved for new cards, especially from Chase, just because of our living situation. And so there are like some banks where we had our because we've been just as a background for everyone else, we've been on a like non-stop road trip, and so we've had a mail forwarding service in Florida, which does count as our official domicile, but there are quite a few banks that don't accept that, and so we've had to use my wife's parents' address in Virginia for some banks as well, and so even then, like we've just been declined at times just due to like them not being able to verify our address, or we've not been able to send them things like a
Mm.
lease or a utility bill or something like that that they want in order to be able to verify that. And so for the last few years, we haven't been able to get any Chase business cards. And my wife just finally managed to get approved for an in cash card the other day. And so that was nice, finally being able to get one of those. So yeah, that's kind of what our situation's been. And most of them have been business cards. A few of them being personal. So I'm still just over 524, but in about 6 months, I think I should be able to apply for more Chase cards again.
I think this was illuminating. Like this video if you are surprised at how many of those applications were business cards. And then like the video if you were not surprised as well. Either way. Either way, like the video.
I like it.
All right. I kind of can't remember where we left off, but I think this will be best assigned to Tim because I think you're going here. JW Masai Mara will charge you $4,950 per night if you booked on points and you cancel less than 90 days out. Chase Sapphire Reserve won't cover it because nothing has been charged on the card in advance. What are your thoughts?
That's interesting. I know that they have a tough cancellation policy. I didn't realize that it was $4,950 per night if you cancel less than 90 days out. I'm not so part of it I think depends on I would say there's two different things that you can do. If the My understanding is if you booked that with your Chase Sapphire Reserve, I believe, and somebody correct me if I'm wrong, that points bookings, if you well, wait a minute. I guess it depends on what you actually had to, because what would you have booked in the
Mhm.
beginning to have that on there? Because there's no copay when you book it.
Yeah.
That's
Mhm.
that's the problem we're
Yeah,
identifying here.
yeah,
So yeah, so it works with flights if you're
yeah,
paying
but
like
you wouldn't be able to do
$5.60,
that.
but mm,
And so what I would do, and depending on why you need to cancel and how far out it is, and I mean, you may have already done this already, but contact Marriott and the property directly. A lot of these properties that have that just if that have ridiculously onerous terminology about cancellation fees will actually either waive or relent on those cancellation fees. They effectively do it to try to keep people from making spurious hypothetical reservations that they don't intend or probably don't intend to just like hold space in case they are able to take a trip there. But so what I would do is call both Marriott, and if you're a Marriott Elite member, that would be even better. Call your Elite line, but call Marriott, don't and then call the hotel directly, speak to a manager, and ask what can be done for this. Explain that you have a good reason why that blah 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 blah. And I would be very surprised if, let's say, you had a 5 night reservation and they're trying to charge you $25,000 because you canceled that reservation. That I would be very, very, very surprised. I don't know that I've ever heard of that data point anywhere, and you'd think that would be pretty common if it was.
yeah.
So to me, that would be the first course before going further. And I certainly wouldn't just cancel it and have it charged and then try to punch it through Chase because of
Yeah.
that non-advanced charge issue.
I guess it also depends. Have you actually made this booking already and you're asking this because you're in this situation where you now need to cancel? Or is this that you want to make a booking, but you're concerned about this option because you'll see that that's what they'll charge if you do end up canceling? Because if it's the latter, another option would be to look into some kind of travel insurance policy where if this is a situation where you're kind of definitely going to go unless something super bad happens where like you get sick and so you can't travel or something like that. Look into travel a proper travel insurance policy rather than just what's associated on a credit card, and then
Mm.
pay the
Mm.
$100 or whatever it is for that travel policy. Make sure that they would cover the kind of scenarios that you're concerned about. And then that way you can have some peace of mind doing a booking like this, where if the worst comes to the worst and you do have to end up canceling, your policy will cover you in that event. If this is all just purely hypothetical at the moment.
Is
That's a
there a
good point.
policy you've gotten before, Stephen, that you could recommend?
I mean, we've used, I think it was Geo Blue Travel Insurance a few times in the past. That was before, like, we kind of had cards where we were happy enough with the coverage that we were putting on there, and we've never had to make any claims on those travel insurance policies. So I've no idea if that would be suitable for this um, particular kind of need. You would really need to look into the full terms and conditions of their policy, because it might be that even if they do allow you to cancel in the event of sickness, they might have some kind of cap on how much they'll pay out for accommodation. So it might be that there's an upper limit of like $2,500 or something like that for a hotel stay, rather than $25,000 for a hotel stay if it was a 5 night stay. So yeah, you would really need to be careful. And I recommend actually calling the travel insurance company and speaking to someone who can just like clarify if there are kind of any like potential gotchas or things like that as to what you would and wouldn't be covered for, if that's the kind of thing that you're asking about regarding this.
All right. Next
One
question.
more thing before you move on. If this isn't a hypothetical and you're just in this situation, another thing to check and see is if you can change the dates of the reservation. Because I have
Mm.
numerous times before forgotten to cancel a reservation I made and then realized after the cancellation deadline has passed and just gone into the app. And this has worked for me with Marriott specifically, and changed the date of the reservation. And I was able to do that in the app on my own to a date far in the future.
Yeah.
And then I went ahead and canceled it because I was
No,
beyond the
that's the best
cancellation.
first.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
That should be
even
that
if you
should be the
can't do
first
it
move.
yourself in the app for whatever reason,
Call up and
talking to the hotel and
Yeah.
saying, hey, I can't go during this time, but I want to go, a year later or whenever it is. That's a much easier sell than just,
Yeah.
yeah.
hey, can I have all
Trying to
my
No.
cancel.
points back and
Mhm.
not be
Yeah.
penalized?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, that's
Right.
That's a
And
good
then if you
idea.
happen to cancel later on and not make
Right.
it for those dates, then you're okay.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, Nick, I'm going to give this one to you because it's cruise related. Is it possible I can get a free Carnival cruise if I submit just an MGM gold status plus Wynn Platinum, trying to avoid making a trip to Atlantic City for more statuses?
These days I'm not sure. I think these days it's a lot tougher. I think with Carnival that you've got a shot, but I think in general the cruises have tightened up a bit on this, and many of them now are asking for proof of some sort of a land-based casino offer or an offer from another cruise line. And so I think you might have a harder time. Here's what you could try though. I had learned this from other members of our Facebook group. Margaritaville at Sea is a cruise line that they only have like 2 ships, I think, and they cruise out of a couple of ports in Florida. But they're pretty generous with matching statuses and or giving you an offer if you show status. So I think that there is a decent-ish shot if you just look for an email address for their players club. I can't remember what the email address is off the top of my head, but if you Google Margaritaville at Sea Players Club, I'm sure you can probably find the email address and send them pictures of your statuses and ask if they have any offers available. There's a pretty good chance that you'll get an offer for a free cruise from them. Then submit your MGM Gold and your Wynn Platinum to Carnival along with the offer for a free Margaritaville at Sea cruise. And I think that will greatly increase your odds of getting an offer for a free cruise with them. That worked for me with Princess. We didn't end up booking the Princess one. There were too many fees that were getting tacked on there. But anyway, that's probably what my next course of action would be for you. It's not impossible that you'll get a free cruise offer, but I think Carnival also, a lot of people have just been saying it's taken forever to actually get an offer for a free cruise now after submitting stuff. And I think that's just a sign of the times. I think these matches have maybe not run their course, but certainly the golden age is probably beyond us in terms of the casino matching stuff. So for cruises specifically. So those would be your best bets, I think.
That's sad news. All right, we're going to circle back to Greg for this last question. Perhaps viewers have noticed that sometimes our videos get cut off. So we're experimenting with the theory that we get cut off after an hour. So this is going to be our last question for Greg. If my rent is $1,500 a month, is Bilt card worth a 524 spot? What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, it's a you're gonna be getting what, 1,500 points a month for free. That's not a ton. But it is free points.
It's 18,000 a year every
I
year
feel like
for as long as you rent.
Yeah.
you guys were just talking about how great these
Yeah,
Bilt
yeah.
points are.
So I think it is, yeah.
I had previously thought that if I was renting here in the US that a Bilt card would kind of be a no-brainer, but actually thinking about it, I'm not convinced that it would be because
Wow,
you'd
what a
be because
twist.
1,500 a month is 18,000 points a year. And if you weren't concerned at all about 524, absolutely get it. It's an absolute no-brainer. If you're concerned about 524, 18,000 points a year isn't very many points to be giving up some other kind of chase card that you could be getting. So if you're going for like a chasing card or something that has a 90,000 point bonus, then that's almost 5 years worth of rent payments that you can get just with one sign-up bonus from Chase. And so I probably wouldn't use it for a 524 spot, especially because of all the associated hassles of having to have like the 5 transactions per month, because otherwise you don't end up earning anything. Plus the fact that you can use Bilt to pay your rent using other credit cards. It's not like that's your only option. So maybe something like an Alaska card where you're earning 3x miles, you are paying a 3% fee or something like that. So it's not free, but there are other options out there. Where if you're using, because you could use an Alaska business card if you don't already have one, and then that wouldn't add to your 524 count. And then if you're also getting a welcome offer on that Alaska business card, then yeah, that will easily outshine anything that you'll get from Bilt, just because Bilt doesn't have any kind of welcome offer other than maybe you'll get 5x for your first 5 days. and even that's capped, I think.
How
So
Just one quick
personally, I
correction.
probably, if I was
I
concerned
believe that
about
the Alaska business card is not
24, I
eligible
would
for the 3x earnings on for paying for
Oh,
rent.
it's a
I
business
think
one,
it's
not
just a personal
okay.
card.
Mm.
But
Okay.
just a
Okay.
minor
But,
detail there.
yeah, but even
So-
then, like if I had the choice between a Bilt card or an Alaska personal card, I'd probably choose a new Alaska personal card if I'm going to choose something that's going to take up a 524 spot, because that is going to be much more rewarding than getting a Bilt card will be.
I don't believe you. You're not paying like 3% fee you're going to pay every month to earn the Alaska miles. I don't believe you, Stephen Pepper. I don't think you're going to pay one cent a mile.
For the
Well, no, I don't think
Well,
you mean that you would
well,
actually.
maybe for the first year, especially if it's like, but for the first 3 months, if I just put that on the card for the welcome offer or something like that. Beyond that, maybe not. But I'd still, if I had the choice between an Alaska card or a Bilt card, I'd still choose the Alaska card regardless. Even if I'm not using it on an ongoing basis, then I'd still
then
choose
just-
that or many other kind of cards over a Bilt one. If I'm concerned about 524, if that's
Yeah,
not a
yeah.
concern, absolutely, Bilt is a no-brainer in that instance.
So how expensive would rent have to be for you to be like, oh yeah, Bilt, definitely worth it?
That's
I
a
forget
good question for Stephen.
what's the cap on earnings each month?
I think
Is it
100,000 a year.
1,000 a year.
100,000 a
Yeah.
year, yeah. So
Mm.
yeah.
So yeah, if you're, because
So
that's what,
it's-
8,000 and something per month.
around
like
there, yeah.
8,000, is it 120 or something? 8,333. I can't remember.
Close,
But
yeah.
if I was paying extortionate amounts for a penthouse apartment in Manhattan, then absolutely do it. But at that point, if I'm earning that much money, I don't know if I'll be all that concerned about earning like that many Bilt points, just because I'd be making bank anyway, and so I can probably afford business class cash flights all around the world. So
I don't know. I think if you're paying $3,000 or $4,000 a month in rent, which isn't uncommon in a city like New York, or I would assume LA, Chicago, at that point, I don't know, 12 months at 48,000 points a year that you're going to continue to earn in perpetuity. I feel like I would probably take the 524 hit there. The 1,500 a month, it's questionable. I'm not disagreeing with you on that. I was disagreeing that paying a penny a mile seemed too expensive for Stephen Pepper, in my opinion. I thought you,
that is very
if they were
true.
on sale, I don't think you'd buy them for that price. I don't think. I could be wrong. I could be
Yeah,
wrong.
no, I think you're completely right.
This person should just get a second apartment, and then they're getting a little closer there.
Yeah, that's right. They need to move up to a
There you go.
house
You get a more
apartment, and
expensive
then,
Just pay more.
apartment.
then they can justify that 524 spot
You
easily.
need to move somewhere more expensive. This is our financial advice for the day. All right. I think let's wrap up early to make sure we don't get cut off by YouTube. Thanks for watching, everyone. If you haven't already done so, like the video, and you can subscribe, and then you'll get notifications when we do these lives, which are usually the first Wednesday of every month at 9 p.m. Eastern Time. Thanks for joining us. And I think we're going to let it cut us off, or we're just going to go.
or you can just listen to us banter for 2 minutes before.
That's right. Like a news channel.